I guess we can get into the way you're actually approaching Linux, because as you've said, the blog post you have here is relatively surface level with both the
Yeah, yeah,
philosophical side, but also with the actual way that you are using Linux. Because you do mention that you're using Arch Linux and now NixOS, but you didn't really get into sort of the kinds of tools you're working with, the way you approach your
yeah.
system, and just generally what you're trying to get out of your system.
Sure. Like in the essay, like I talked about us cases, like improving yourself as well. But like in none of the points, like I said something like this is the whole reason or something like that. Like for me, it was a good bonus that like further motivates me. But there are also like reasons such as Linux being free, like you basically don't need to pay anything, like Linux being uh, customizable, like it allows you to do things as the way that you like to do. Like there are also these more like ideological sides, like uh, open source software and stuff like that, which I also find really virtuous. Exactly. And like one thing, like hmm, like one thing that first motivated me to like switch to Linux was actually like more like a combination of many reasons rather than like a single one. Like I was already considering to switch to Arch Linux when I was using um, Windows, and like I believed it would actually force me to learn more and more, and could be make me more efficient in the end. Like this is not only like something like ascesis also, but it's also pragmatic approach, I mean. And I also had a friend like Osama, and he was obsessed with free and open source software security and so on, and he would always try to convince me to use Linux. Like to give you a short idea, like he was basically using this meta operating system called CubeOS, and he was spanning Linux sandboxes in it and so on. Like the opposite way I approach software, like minimalism and stuff. But he was actually taking more like a ideological perspective, and most of his ideas were actually sound to me. Like, but I was just avoiding the initial cost. Like, I was lazy, but but I found all these arguments sounds like the things that you were mentioning. But what was the like the last straw for me was something like I also met another person, like uh, his GitHub name is something like GWN, like 3 letters, and like he was using Linux in the startup I was working for, and the first time I saw him working on stuff, I liked his workflow. Like I I immediately thought like I want to be like as fast as efficient like this guy, and all he was using was simple tools like a NeoVim, like a tool called DVTM to multiplex shell sessions. Like it's like Tmax but a lot less suckless alternative. Like he was using, of course, many different Unix utilities which I don't remember exactly. And he was also typing very fast. Like he was cool. And like all the other developers who were in our team that were using macOS or Windows wasn't even like, if you would ask me, half as productive as this guy. Like it's weird, but it was this way. And it wasn't like he was shipping bad code to become fast, or like he was actually like very obsessed with the code products he was writing. Like he would aggressively delete unnecessary code, would preach simplicity, educate team like on how to use Git and stuff like that. So like this was the final straw for me, and after that, like I went to my friend Osama, and he helped me. Like we together set up my Arch Linux computer, and we basically have gone through the Arch wiki while doing so. Like we didn't use anything like Arch install or like that. And after we have experimented with that, like I also installed Arch Linux by myself after that experience for many times, and it worked great for me overall. Like people complain about how it sometimes break and so on. Like it happened to me a few times, like some program would break and so on, but overall really it was a really stable experience for me once I get used to it.
Do you remember how long ago you started using Linux?
Like yeah, like we can separate my Linux experience as like my blind Linux experience and the serious one. Like my if you think about the blind experience, like my first introduction to Linux just goes back to when I was around 10 or so.
Okay.
But it was something like I broke my computer, and then I had to share my cousin's computer, which had Ubuntu installed in it. And I wasn't aware that the OS, like that, I wasn't aware that I was using Ubuntu. And but
Do you know what version
I
that would have been back then?
I don't remember exactly, but like I remember playing some open source games in it, like Lero. The things it was like worms, but in real time, like you shoot each other and stuff. And other than that, I was mostly playing games on browser, so that was my first experience. But I don't count it as a real experience. Like I eventually ended up using Windows again, like when my parents got fixed my computer, like so
So back then
my
you were using
serious
it just
yeah
as you were just using it as a computer. You didn't know what it was
yeah
running.
I was basically forced to use it because my own computer got broken. And the interesting thing is that my cousin was also trying to convince me to use Linux when I was 10 or so. And it would have been great if I just did that. Like I would probably be a lot better developer than I am now. But yeah, so the serious, like the things I mentioned about my friend, the one who is more ideological one, and the one who is pragmatical, the coder kind of guy, like uh, that period was around 3 years before or so. Like we can say that like I've been using Arch Linux like 3 years before or so, and I tried to use it the minimal way the first time I started to use it, and I constructed my own environment from bottom to up, like instead of using KDE and then deleting stuff like that. Like, and I thought like it was very educating for me. Like I still don't know a lot of things about my system and so on, but like my even then, like my understanding expands so much. I really appreciate it.
Was there any specific reason why you went with Arch Linux, or was that because your friend was the inspiration for it? Were you just not really sure that anything else was around?
I guess it was basically due to the people whom I saw using Linux was using Arch Linux, and like those were influential people, and I would find their thoughts inspirational. Like I would like to be like them, and so on. So that was kind of the reason, and I guess like if you would ask me right now, which operating system shall I give it to you, like it wouldn't matter to me that much right now.
Mhm.
But like if you give Arch to me, like I would still configure the things as I want them to be. Like if you would give Debian to me, I would probably install Nix in it and use Home Manager to still make the things function as I want them to be. Or so like I would get what I want,
Mhm.
regardless of like those. Maybe if I go something lower level than Arch, then it might change. Like I might have some struggle and so on, but like as of now, it doesn't matter for me that much. I may even use desktop environment. Like I don't see why I should right now, because everything I have is sufficient for me. But uh, yeah,
That's sort of how I feel when people ask me, why don't you use Fedora or whatever other Ubuntu or anything else? When I get asked that, I think, well, what am I going to run on that distro? And then basically all I'm doing is just recreating Arch Linux. Just I don't have the AUI. That would be the only difference.
yeah,
And I guess that's cool if that's what you like, if you really care about the package manager you have. But at least for me, that like if Arch Linux suddenly said we're getting rid of Pac-Man, we're gonna use DNF, we're gonna use apt, nothing would really change for me. I don't really care about that specific thing.
yeah,
If you are someone who wants a more customized experience out of the box, something where you're trying to, install it on a business machine and you're not trying to use it as a hobby machine, I absolutely understand the value of going with something like a Fedora or an Ubuntu. But at least for what I'm doing, I would just be redoing exactly what I've done again. And at least for me, maybe there'll be a learning experience there, but besides that, I just don't really see any reason to use one of those systems.
yeah. And I also share like this feeling on when it comes to tools like choosing your window manager and etc. Like nowadays there is this window manager called Hyperland, which runs on Wayland, but
Mhm,
and
mhm.
it's really cool. Like it's tempting me to use it, but like I also feel like okay, but I already set up my environment like DWM and it works. So like yeah, it would be cool to use that, but I'm also fine right now. So
I was going to ask
yeah.
you what window manager you're using. So it's
Oh yeah,
DWM.
yeah. Like we can talk about that.
Are you heavy on patch usage in DWM, or is it a fairly clean experience?
Uh, honestly, I didn't patch anything on my DWM. Like
Okay.
I used the bare minimal one. Like I just attached some key bindings,
Mhm,
and that's all. Like uh, it's DWM out of the box, and I like to use programs like out of the box. I like programs that doesn't need many configuration. Uh, like even with NeoVim, I don't like myself having too long configurations and stuff like that, which I have like that long configuration right now, which I don't like
mhm.
this very much. But even with NeoVim, I would rather would like to simplify my configuration even further. Like the reason why I use like for terminal multiplexer, the reason why I use a tool called Zelish or maybe Zelij, like I don't know how it's
How do you
pronounced.
spell it? Sorry, I'll see if I can
Uh,
find it.
Zelij.
Silly. Oh,
Like
I've
it's an
heard of this
alternative
one.
to
Yeah.
Tmax,
Mhm,
written by the Rust guys. So like the only reason why I prefer over that Tmax is that it comes with more sane key bindings by default.
right.
Like, and it's also customizable, etc. Like there is also that, but like for me, a tool working out of the box is also a good thing. like once you understand what it does and stuff like that. Like before ZLIJ, I was using this tool called DVTM. Like it's kind of like a terminal multiplexer, but it's more sackless in the way that it doesn't like handle session management part. Like for that, you usually use other tools like Detach or GNU, not GNU Screen maybe, but like Abduco or stuff like that. So I was using those stuff, and then after getting used to them, like I was like, man, like what I am doing, like you need patches so that your mouse scroll works in this DVTM tool. Like, but with Tmax or ZLIJ, you get more features. Like maybe it's more bloated, but you get what you want in the end, and you already understood what these tools were about, and so on.